Alright, wanted to show you guys this new mesh sync feature that was added in the latest release. I've prepared a demo, so let's quickly go through the setup. So for this demo, we've got a user called Tactical, which is currently logged in as. It's a super user. And then we have another user called Bob, who's going to be our limited user with limited permissions. So Tactical is obviously a super user, and then we've got a role here, permission role, called mesh123, and it's got some limited permissions. Only thing we really care about right now is they can use MeshCentral, so that would be the take control, remote terminal, and remote files feature. And then it is limited to site 2. So here's the setup. We've got 2 clients, each with a site in them. And then in site 2, we've got just one agent, the server 2012 guy, and then site 1 has the remaining agents. So that is the setup. So before we show you how the new feature works, I'm going to show you how it used to be, the old way. And to do that, I'm actually going to go and turn off this new feature. It is optional. You can revert it back to the old way anytime you want. Although we don't recommend that, and you'll probably understand why after I show you how it currently works. You should leave this on. So I'm going to turn it off right now. I'll get into this, how it works later on, but I'm just going to turn it off just so you can see how it used to work. So again, we're tactical. We're going to do a take control, and everything works. Okay, great. And what that does behind the scenes is it generates a login token for Mesh, and it actually logs you into Mesh. And if we open up Mesh in a new tab, we'll see Mesh. So you can see we were auto logged in. We have access to all the agents, which we should because we're the super user. And we're logged in as this global Mesh super user account, which is this guy right here. Okay, so that's the super user. Now, I mentioned we have a user called Bob who's limited, and I've got him logged in over here. So this is Bob, and let's do the same thing. Let's do take control. Well, Bob can access this agent. Good. And then let's open up Mesh. And what the hell? Why do I have access to all the agents, right? And why am I using the global super user? This should not be possible. This is not right, right? Obviously, there's a permissions issue here. So yeah, we've fixed that. So let's log out of there and show you how it works now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on this feature again. Turn this on. And by the way, this will be turned on by default for those of you that are upgrading or installing for the first time, so you won't have to do this. Just FYI, it is enabled by default. So we'll turn it back on. So now let's do the same thing. Let's do take control. Nothing has changed on this end. Everything's the same. But now, if I open up Mesh, we can see, first of all, we notice that the interface looks a little bit different, right? We no longer have the full access to Mesh. We're no longer a Mesh super admin. It's very limited what we can do here. We still have access to all the agents because we are a super user, but you'll notice that now we're using a new Mesh user called tactical_1, and I'll get to that in a little bit. That's good. But now what about Bob, right? Let's go back to Bob, and let's do the same thing. Let's do take control. All right, everything here is good. And remember, before when we opened up Mesh, we had access to all the agents, and we were full Mesh super admin. But now, look at that. We only have access to this guy, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And then you'll notice here now Bob has his own Mesh user. So let's do this. Let's get these side by side so you can see. Actually, let's go like this. Okay. So now I want to show you what happens if we update Bob's permissions. So first thing we'll do is let's actually move. So Bob has permission to site 2, right? And let's actually move this guy, this Dell guy, into site 2. And look what's going to happen over here. So you see it updated. And then if we look at Bob's, we refresh here, he has access to this Dell. That worked before, but this mesh thing is new here. What else can we do? Let's actually let's remove his site 2 permissions. Let's instead give him access to site 1, and what's going to happen over here. So those agents are gone, and the agents that were in site 1 are now here. So the sync is working the way it should be. Alright, another feature that was added has to do with the user consent pop-up thing. Let me show you what I mean by that. I've actually got a third browser open, and this is just the Mesh super user. This is just logged in as in a completely separate browser just for demonstration purposes. And a lot of you, for compliance reasons, you have in your device group settings, you have the user consent enabled, right? You have maybe this, or show connection, or prompt the user, whatever. And so when you do take control of a computer, let's do one real quick. Let's just get this guy right here. You can see, well, here it says tactical started a remote, tactical_1 started a remote desktop session, sharing desktop with tactical, and that's kind of like, especially with the old way with the very cryptic mesh username, it looked kind of weird. Like, what the hell? Why is this weird username connecting to my computer? So let me show you this new feature now. What happens is if you actually go into tactical user and you set a name for the user, so let's just do, I don't know, John Doe. Alright, so John Doe, I actually should have showed you this, what happened here first, but here, let's do this. Oh, look here where it says John Doe, right? If I delete how it used to be, if I do that, it says not set, right? Now if I put it back to John Doe, whatever, John Doe, look over here, John Doe, it syncs with mesh, and now if we do another take control, here, sharing desktop with John Doe, and then John Doe started a remote desktop session. And one more thing regarding that. If you go here to MeshCentral, there's this new thing called company name, and it says here, adding your company name here will append it to the user's full name that appears when doing a remote control session. So let's put my company, Immutaware Inc. And then look over here, John Doe, if we hit save, and then you can see it appended the company name here. So if we do a take control, and now it says sharing desktop with John Doe, Immutaware Inc. Same thing over here. If you if you don't want that, if you want to revert it or whatever, you just delete it make sure it's empty, and then it will remove from here, gone. If let's say you just want his first name, John, is John. Let's delete this. Let's say you just want the company name. Just make sure that the first and last name are empty, and then just set the company name, and it'll just say Immutaware Inc. Okay, going back to the Bob guy, let's actually, just want to show you something. So let's actually remove his site 1 permissions. What do you think will happen? Let's find out. He'll get access to all of the agents. Why? Because of this. It says empty means all clients are allowed. Empty means all sites. So if you don't specify anything, here, by default, they'll get access to all the agents. So that's just something to be aware of. I know some that confuses a lot of people, so I just wanted to bring it up. Make sure that something is set here. Also, um, if you do something like well, obviously there's one client site, but if you give access to a client, that will give them access to all the sites in that client. So you don't do something like try to limit their site access while giving them a client. That won't work. So if you give them access to the client, that's it. They'll get access to all the sites in that client. If you just want to do individual sites, you should leave the clients empty and just do site by site. Alright, one last thing for the limited Bob guy demo. What happens if we just do something like this? If we straight up, if we either deny his login or we make him inactive, which you can just quickly do by hitting this little power button here. Let's disable his access. Let's watch what's going to happen. Gone. All right. Disconnected. Unauthorized. And if I show you what actually happened here you can see that his account was completely deleted. And if I re-enable him, you can see that it got recreated again with the permissions that he's supposed to have. So now I want to get into a little bit of how this whole thing works under the hood. And to do that, I'm going to show, I've got I'm logging as the Mesh super user here, just so you can see what's going on. And as we make changes in tactical, you'll see in real time what's happening. So first thing we'll do is let's go ahead and go back to the setting that enables this. So let's recommend to keep this option enabled. And like I said earlier, it'll be turned on by default. So if I turn it off, you get this little warning. It says this operation may take several minutes to complete, blah, blah, blah. It's very CPU and disk intensive. This is just for the initial sync. So as long as you're not constantly turning this on and off, it's not going to be an issue. It's just that the first time you do this, which for those of you that are upgrading will be when you run the update script, you'll notice it might take a minute or two for the initial sync, and then you might have some load on your server. So just be aware of that. And so let's turn it off and watch over here. Users are deleted. And then, of course, this works for all the users. If I had another user in here, whatever. That's okay. We just added a user, and I'm gonna turn it back on. So it will create that new user as well. So it's always going to sync with whatever is in tactical every time it runs. Let's go ahead and look at Bob or whatever. So this the reason for this underscore 13 and then this random email is because Mesh is very picky about uniqueness and usernames being unique and emails being unique. So I was doing testing on a lot of existing systems, found out that some people have same email or same usernames or whatever, and that will break the sync. So we wanted to ensure that everything is completely unique, so that's why we've got these unique identifiers. Do not try to change these, or that's going to break the sync. The end user will never see anything like this. Again, I showed you before with the user consent feature that the only thing that will show up is the real name if you have that set. Another thing I wanted to mention is I know a lot of you have gone into Mesh and added your own device groups. And you're probably wondering, is this going to break your existing setup? The answer to that is no. We are not touching your device groups. And I'll show you if I add a device group here, and then I move this guy. If I move this guy into the device group, right, and then I do take control, it still works, right? So we're not touching your device groups. The sync does not use device groups. It actually uses an API in Mesh that's not so common. It's got you can set individual permissions per user per device. So we're using that Mesh API. So you can see here, you can see all the users that have access to this computer. And then if we go to the user, you can see we're using this common devices API. And so how it works under the hood is if let's go to Bob and look over here, look at the devices here. If I do, let's give him access just to site 2, watch over here, and you see it updated. So that's how it works under the hood. It will use the Common Devices API to always make sure that whatever agents that Bob has access to in Tactical, he has access to in Mesh. Another thing I wanted to mention is for those of you that have the consent enabled, you're going to want to set that at the device group level. So you're going to want to, the user consent thing. If you set it here, the users will inherit that permission, right? So you do not have to, you don't have to come here for each of the tactical generated users. You do not have to come here and individually do that. Do not do that because, you should not touch this user at all. Let tactical handle it. Do all of your customizations and stuff from within the device group, and then, like I said, the users will inherit from that.